with chiaroscuro. The person actually, painting started now to be done actually on brown grounds, and the person who invented really the brown ground was actually Leonardo da Vinci. And then when we come actually to the 17th century, to the Baroque period, starting with the paintings of Caravaggio, everybody puts a dark brown now on the painting, and a type of realism comes into existence which is using very, very strong lighting. This is a portrait actually of, I believe, of a Polish nobleman or a Polish officer by Rembrandt. Now look at the way the shading works over here. You've got the lighting coming from over here. This would be known as base color. This over here is a highlight. This over here, right at the edge of his nose over here, is turned in shadow. Underneath there, this area is in shadow, but it's receiving some light, so we call that reflected light. And like right under the chin, where this is becoming very black over there, is considered actually, in a sense, to be a cast shadow. Everybody started learning this, and everybody knew this. This looks extraordinarily three-dimensional. I mean, it's a phenomenal painting. And you can tell, by the way, that it is realistic in the sense this is not an idealized portrait. Rembrandt is not into idealization. By the way, this technique of having just a little bit of light over here on this part of the face is known as Rembrandt light. And photographers are always trying to copy that, you know, because they get it in a sense from him. He also uses, what later photographers will do, he actually emphasizes the head, so the stronger light is on the head and the lesser light is over here on the garment. And now, this is actually by Thomas Couture. This is a painting, it's in the Philadelphia, it's a very fine painting, I think. Couture, when he doesn't do these corny story paintings that make you want to throw up, is really a really good painter. And Manet studied with this man for 6 years. And then he finally, I shouldn't tell this to my students, he couldn't stand his teacher anymore, and he simply walked out of the class. But this painting now is really the technique, the traditional technique of painting that everybody was taught now in the 19th century when they went to the academy. You took the entire canvas now with a brown ground. You put it with a brown ground. You put your drawing then on top of the ground. And then you start building up the light areas. This, by the way, this color, which is right over here, is actually the ground itself. That is the brown ground. And that ground works actually as reflected light in the shadow area, which means that there is a shadow in there which is brown. This is the cast shadow, which is just a little darker over here. This is turned in shadow, which is darker, but that is the ground itself. And then with thick paint, you put on the white over here. This is put on with very thick paint. This over here, this, by the way, is the ground itself. That was the ground of the canvas. The darker browns that are put in over here and put in the lines you can see over here. This was a surefire method of creating a very strong, actually three-dimensional effect. And this is Manet's Olympia. And I think you can see almost immediately what the difference is from every single thing that I have shown you. This painting is based on this painting. Now, this is the amazing thing that people don't completely understand. When people are revolutionary artists, it doesn't mean they condemn the past. That's not true. They love the past. The painters, Cezanne, and the whole gang were always going down to the Louvre Museum. But they didn't want to paint like them. They didn't live in the age of Titian. They lived in an entirely different age. Now, this is the Venus Urbino by Titian, who was the great 16th century Venetian painter. It's a gorgeous painting, very delicate shading. I want you to notice certain things, that the background is divided into two areas over here. This deals with something dealing with marriage. That's some sort of marriage box over there. There's a dog that's placed down here. There's a straight line over here. And a lapdog has been placed over here, which is, has actually slight sexual connotations, but is often used actually in conjunction with a female figure. And also it repeats the curves on the woman's body, like the breast, the stomach, and the legs, and then the lapdog, which stops the straight line over there of the bed. Okay, now. And now if we come back actually to Manet's actually Olympia. Now, first of all, Manet does he takes the composition. He simply takes the composition. He takes over here a white woman, which is what the Olympia, the Venus Urbino is, on a white sheet. Here you have the white sheet. this slide makes this a little too blue, but these are cool gray colors actually inside here. Color exists, by the way, in basically 6 ways. It is dark and light. In the painting, you have a white woman on a white sheet. In the background of the painting, you have a black woman against basically a black background over there. And by the way, if you'll notice, there is no line or anything differentiating this woman's face actually from the darkness which is behind her. And then when he comes over here, instead of the dog that you had in the Venus Urbano, Manet puts in this cat, which seems to be sort of purring or maybe in a dangerous way. But look at what he has done now. Now Manet decided on this. Manet taught people about tone without the use of shadows. Everybody had always thought of tone as being something in relationship to, let's say, base color, turn and shadow, reflected light, and cast shadows. That's now out. It is now out the window, actually, in this painting. Olympia's body is basically a very warm pink, actually, over there. When it goes into form, when it goes into shadow, it only goes into shadow just along the edges. You can see over there, just along the edge over here. And the more you look at this painting, the more solid this woman becomes. And that you're going to see, I think, is because of the way he uses tone. She is basically a warm white. He thinks of this like an abstraction. A warm white against the cool white that you have over here. The woman in the background is actually a warm brown against the cool darks over here that are, in a sense, behind her. And what this painting is, he has reduced everything to as close as he can get to basically black and white. The whites now move from the foreground over here into the background. Now, he discovered this. If you're doing a painting in which you are not using shading to help you get space, you still have to get the figures integrated into the background. You can do the most gorgeous figure in the world, and if it is not integrated into the background, it's a crummy painting. So what Manet figured out to do is to take the color from the foreground over here, the basic whites, and then move it over here into the white that you have over there of the background. Now, then he does this. Inside, actually, this large white shape, all of a sudden, he is going to put now black spots. And I can't emphasize, this black string around her neck is not put on there to make her look sexy. I've seen art historians say that's the reason. That's a crock of bull. He takes this, actually, he puts this on. If you took this off of her, if I could do that actually inside, if you made that just the color of her skin, your eye would go over here to this side of the painting automatically. It would simply focus actually on the flowers. I'll discuss the flowers in a second. What the black does, and you can see it when you do it often in painting, it immediately made her appear more solid. I don't know why. I have no understanding exactly why this happens. But this immediately actually makes her body actually appear more solid. This is, by the way, a sharp white. This is an off-white. This is a sharp white. This is an off-white. This is a sharp white. Now look at the woman over here in the background. All of a sudden on her head, you notice, if that little light hat over there was not on her head, you would lose her head completely. She would fall. But if it was too light, it would pop out of the painting. So he's got this exact sense of tone in putting that in there. And then what are the flowers for? If you're doing a painting with a lot of toned down color, using browns and pinks, you know, stuff where you mix a lot of white, you need often just a couple of touches of bright color. The flowers in this painting, the blues over here and the reds over here, are pure reds and pure blues. They're probably taken from the tube, and they automatically bring the whole thing to life. But in the flowers are these black spots. These leaves are not just green, they're a blackish green. And let me tell you, if you made those leaves actually a pale green, this painting wouldn't work, because he needs that to really balance it and grab you inside the painting. Even the cloth, where he ended up putting up some of the pattern over here, is just dark. This is the first painting of modernism. Everybody knew this. Cézanne said, with the pink and white of this painting, our painting now starts. And the public hated it. And look at this painting. I mean, really, is there anything pornographic about it? First of all, she looks like she's about as interested in sex, I think, as she's interested in the Zeta Z. She's just sitting there simply looking at you like that, beautifully painted. He also, by the way, interestingly enough, Manet is one of the people who discovered the modern woman, who is not demure, like, let's say, the Titian was, you know, or shy. She's looking really right at you. In other words, she's a woman who is, in a sense, in complete possession of herself. Now, I just want to show the immediate influence on other painters just very quickly. This is a painting by Gauguin. This is probably Gauguin's greatest painting. It's in the that museum in Buffalo. I keep forgetting its name, the Atkins Knox or something. Albright Knox Museum. This, by the way, interestingly enough, Gauguin, when he was living in Tahiti, had a reproduction actually of Manet's Olympia in the tent, in the place where he was living. And this woman, who was his mistress at the time, was quite young. A lot of people find this scandalous, but she thought the painting was beautiful. And he said, look, this woman who has no education realized what a beautiful painting, you know, that is. And all these hotshot critics, you know, in Paris can't see anything. This painting is was very influenced by Manet, except that he changes it. He does over here, she is a dark figure on a light background. And then the way to hold that in space is you reverse it. At the bottom part of the painting over here, the yellow and the blue, which are opposite colors, become, so orangey yellow becomes actually a light on a dark. If you do that, it's amazing how much that somehow or other holds the thing in place. This stuff over here, the white at the top of the painting, in flattish paintings, there's often a quality that the upper part of the paintings end up often falling too far back in space. And so this actually helps the whites that help to reinforce it. This is all symbolic about fear, but the black holds your attention on her, and it's repeated over here. By the way, it's interesting that he puts this pillow in, which breaks the white shape going around her. And the reason that he does that is that if the white shape went completely around her, that would be too hard to hold in. So he breaks it up, but he continues the white you can see in these little spots over here. Oh, good. Now, this is by Toulouse-Lautrec. Where do you think he got that from? This is in the Museum of Modern Art. It's a terrific painting. And this is, I think, Gauguin, one of these women that from the Moulin Rouge that Lautrec actually liked and insulted all the time when he painted them. But again, in this painting, if that black was not around this woman, let me tell you, first of all, she's flat. This is basically flat painting. There's shading, it's true, on the face over there. There's hardly any here, hardly any over here. But I think this looks really solid. This looks solid in the sense too. But what holds your attention on her and what literally solidifies her is this black band around her neck. And he got that from Olympia. I could give an entire lecture on Olympia and its influence. I can show literally 100 paintings by Matisse in which he spikes the idea of Manet's flowers, actually, put in his painting. And there are the white spots you can see at the top of the painting in order to balance what's going on there. Now, this painting, which I love, I mean, I must admit, Manet's, the painting is like food. Good painting is like food. If you look at the painter, Frank Stella, said, anybody who goes to a Matisse show never goes away hungry. I mean, which is true. It's like you have really this terrific meal just looking at this stuff, and this is my meal, let me tell you. This is this woman over here is, this is in the what do you call it, in the National Gallery in Washington. Manet had passed by, he does scenes from modern day life, from everyday life, okay? So the railroad is part of everyday life. Now just look at this abstractly. And notice how delicate the shading is. Very delicate shading, not strong shading over here. This woman is a large, dark shape with light spots on her. Forget about her being a face. That's a light spot. There's the black thing again. And this whole thing, this door must be white and off-white, and these must be off-white buttons. What is the little girl? The little girl is basically a light shape, right? She's a light shape, and look at her. She's got a black band that you've got over here. Now, let me tell you this. Manet does extraordinary things, actually, with the relationship of the figure to the background that nobody else would dare to do. A beginner would have a fit, I think, putting these bars in. I've even seen art students say, oh, my God, that's no good. You're not supposed to put stuff like that in a painting. Really? Why? Because you got over here, the black is in the background, then comes to her over here, and then the white from the background comes to this thing over here. Where it's white from behind goes into white from in front. This is, by the way, an The touch of color, by the way, is up in the upper part of the hat with the reds and the yellows, and there are black spots over here. By the way, this child, I don't know how dresses were in those days, but this child must have a bun on her back that is dark. It's not there just to show some fashion statement. It's there because if this was not there, this wouldn't work. It's all. Now, Manet saw this painting. This is a gorgeous painting. This is by Giorgione. It's a Fechan Petra, who, like Titian, is a high Renaissance Venetian painter from the early part of the 1500s. Now, you could get away with something like this because people thought that this looked like Arcadia. What is Arcadia? Arcadia is ancient Greece, where there are shepherds. So if you put nudes in, it didn't look like, even though these people were wearing contemporary costumes in the day, people thought that he's obviously making an allusion actually to ancient Greece. This is the Renaissance. This is not two Italians over here with two Italian women who have just sort of taken off their clothes in public. If he did that, he would have been put in jail. He would have simply been put in jail, and he would have gotten into an awful lot of trouble. And now Manet saw this thing too. This is from a drawing actually by a guy named Marco Antonio Raimondi of a lost painting by Raphael. And on the right side of the painting are these river guards. The drawing of this print are these river guards. So taking the idea of that painting that I just showed you by Giorgione as a takeoff, and then taking the idea of this composition, Manet did then this, which is the first scandal. This, by the way, any painter who is ever rejected from a show should never feel bad, should never feel bad. This was a painting that was submitted actually to the Salon of 1863. And I mistakenly called it the biennial because it was every other year. To the Salon of 1863, it was rejected with huge amounts of other paintings. Napoleon III was in charge, actually, of the country at that time. And artists, you know how artists are, they were all complaining and screaming. So in order to get in good, actually, with the public, he set up a Salon des Refusés. Well, who was in the Salon des Refusés? You had Manet, you had this painting, you have Whistler's Woman in White, which is one of the greatest American paintings, unbelievable. Whistler was living in Europe. You had Cezanne, you had Degas, you had Pissarro, you had all the great painters of the latter part of the 19th century. Who was in the Salon that got were winning prizes? Joe Popupnik and his cousins, people who nobody cares about now, just except maybe as curiosities to set this off. So this was in the Salon des Refusés, and this painting now caused this tremendous scandal. This is a beautifully painted nude, a beautifully painted nude. Manet has done this really, I think, to show that he can paint a nude as good as anybody, if not better. He's a terrific still life painter. He's the great, and he can do a fairly decent thing, actually, in a sense, for the landscape. She posed indoors. She posed indoors. One of these guys, I think it's this guy over here, is his brother, who ended up actually marrying Bertamara. So now, again, you have, though, his technique of this flattening out. Only along the edge over here. You see that just along the edge over there, you have a darkness over there that moves us now into space. You see how that did, so that but no, how does he keep her in space? He connects her now actually over there to the white of the pants there. And what is this? This is for color. This is actually now for a touch of color, and it's important that this is black. All this still like what you have. Why is the hand there? It needs a white spot over there. This woman's head is black, actually. It doesn't fade as it goes into the background. And this is a pure black, a flat black, that holds this whole group together. It's very important, by the way, that the top of the painting, that this little light spot, which I believe represents water, actually balances all the lights over there. Now, he saw this painting by Velázquez. This painting is in the Prado Museum. It's a terrific painting. And Velázquez, of course, remember, is a realist from the 17th. There are no drawings. We have no drawings. We don't know how he did this. Velázquez had a terrific eye. You can tell that this is somebody, they put a sheet on him, and these are regular Spanish peasants and stuff like that. This is using extremely strong shading over here. Velázquez has a terrific understanding of tone, which is part of the place where Manet got it from. In other words, this must be lighter than that. This must be black. There is no way the painting, and this must be white, and this over here must be black, and this white spot is needed over there. On the basis of this painting, Manet did the next painting, which is this painting over here, which is the old musician, which is in the National Gallery in Washington. By the way, to see great Manets, well, you cannot see Olympia in this country, and you can't see Luncheon on the Grass in this country, but we have a lot of really great paintings by Manet in this country, because it was the American collectors who bought these paintings, basically largely due to Mary Cassatt, who's a great painter, I think. Very great painter, a phenomenal printmaker, and she convinced her friend, Louisine Havemeyer, who was a multimillionaire, to buy all these paintings. Now, what do you got over here? Forget about, why are these people together? That's the other thing. In the painting by Velázquez, these people are together because it's the god Bacchus, you know, the god of wine and stuff like that. Why are these people together? Why? Because he wants to make a painting. That's the only reason. They've come together for a painting, and if artists invented it, that's it. That's the reason they do it. The psychology is now going out the window, actually, in a sense. With Manet, this kid is basically a white shape from the white from the background. This kid is a dark shape. This guy needs to have dark shoes. This girl's feet are exposed over here because he needs a white spot over here. That must be black. That must be a lighter brown. That must be a little darker. And that must be black over there. It's almost thought of really as abstractly. And when I say that something is abstractly, this painting, which is in the National Gallery in London, I recently saw it. Actually, my wife and I had gone to London a couple of years ago. This painting really is the forerunner of abstract expressionism. Sections of this painting are unbelievable. He wanted to do a painting dealing with modern life, with the music and the Tuileries. And notice how he starts over here. This is Lord Leighton, I believe, over here. This guy, I believe, no, this guy is Baudelaire over here. One of these guys is his brother over there. This thing. So he starts out in this group of paintings. These are painted fairly realistically over here, but by the time he gets to this section, he no longer seems to care what it is even. He wants to create a vertical thrust in a painting, bringing the top of the painting down to the bottom. So look, this is unbelievably daring. He is the most daring painter, I think, almost in the history of art. This is a black shape going straight. What is this? I guess it's the back of this one. I don't know what this is. I can never figure it out, but it's neat and actually that color. And then he makes this a black over here. And then look at what he's doing when he comes over here. He has blacks in the middle part of the painting, strong whites, a strong black over there. He all of a sudden feels he needs a black over there. So he does a smudge with paint like that. And all of a sudden, I guess it's an umbrella. I don't know. Who cares? But what Manet did, and Matisse made this statement, Manet made painting, he simplified it for painters because he allowed painters to put their immediate sensation onto the canvas. By that I mean, like what you feel in your gut, you go and you just put it on, and then you move back, and then you look at it, instead of, let's say, putting down a drawing and sitting very calmly with music, and then carefully, like, filling in the, which is fine, by the way. There's nothing wrong in the sense of that. This, you're really in a fit. And it's interesting that when he was painting Émile Zola, the writer Zola, who knew him, and Manet was a wealthy gentleman, really, something even of a dandy, he said he looked over towards him, and Manet had stopped looking at him because he was constantly changing the tones, and he was acting like a madman. He was attacking the canvas, all that stuff, which looks forward to the paintings that when I was young in the 50s, and I went to Cuba, everybody was doing that, was simply having basically a catatonic fit when they painted. Now, he was very interested actually in doing a standing figure. And so this is the same woman, by the way, who posed actually for Olympia. This is Victorine Morand over here. Spanish things were very popular in France at the time. The Empress of France, the Empress Eugenie, who was Napoleon III's wife, was Spanish. And the greatest French opera is Carmen, you know, from Prosper, which is basically a Spanish, it's a French opera in Spanish. Okay, but look at this painting. He does very strange things between the relationship of the figure to the background. He dresses her up in this costume. There's the black, and he uses black like nobody else does. He uses black. Black is something that the Spaniards are terrific at using. And Manet now is in modern times, by the way, Picasso will be a great user of black, and Miro will be a great user of black. You have over here the red, the touch of bright color, the red in the lips, the blue, and the yellowy, which is over here. But look at this background. It almost looks like this cloth. It looks like she's standing on something which all of a sudden becomes a painting. And that this cloth might be wiping this. You can't even tell. But there is no three-dimensional relationship, really, except that it works. It simply works. It brings out the form over there in the painting, and her shoes actually are light brown because he's got over here to give her the sense of the floor that she's that it's surrounded by the dark. And this painting is so gorgeous. This is in the Metropolitan Museum. Then he does this. You have over here this woman over here in a sort of a pinkish white. She's basically a white shade. And again, by the way, that trick that he's now going to use over and over again, the black that you've got around there to solidify the body. And then when you come to the bottom, this, of course, is from academic painting. There is a thing in academic painting in which if the background is dark, you have to bring the dark into the foreground. So the dark from the background comes into this point over here, but this is almost really flat. This is almost a large, really flat shape over here with the orange over here and the blue of the parrot being the touch of color, and then the blue brought up into the hair. Now, he loved Velasquez. This might be the greatest. I mean, if you have to make all these absurd statements, and they are absurd, I guess, after a while. This is Velasquez's painting of the Maids of Honor, which a lot of people consider to be the greatest painting ever. It's worth a trip to Spain. This is really worth just going to the Prado Museum and standing for 24 hours in front of this painting, which is a mirrored image, by the way. Here's the painter. He's behind these figures. So there's a mirror in front of him, and the king and queen. This is the 17th century. Excuse me. This is the Infanta. There's the king and queen of Spain, who obviously entered the room from behind the mirror that he's painting this from, and then they're reflected into the mirror. And this has all these triangles you can see over here. See this triangle, this triangle, this triangle, and all these rectangles, except it does it really with the most extraordinary type of realistic gestures. Now, I'm just showing this. This is a painting that Velasquez did of the Dauphin, you know, the prince. By the way, this looks like one of those paintings, you know, when you go to Coney Island. People remember Coney Island, and you stick your head through a thing, and you become somebody, you know. I mean, that's what this looks like over here. The kid is obviously was not sitting on the horse, and look at this background. But this reads as a background over here. But I just wanted, this is painterly painting. Manet is a painterly painter. You know, I'll tell you, what is painting? The opposite of painterly painting is painting. If you get up close, let's say, to a painting by Albert Dürer or a painting by Van Eyck, it looks like God came down and simply put the paint on. I mean, there is no thing that is anybody's hand was in it. So that the figure, by the way, when you look close to it, looks actually blotchy from the paint. And look at how loosely he's painted this stuff. This is really, Manet, it's in his hand. It's like with Rodin, it's like with the sculpture, it's in his wrist, the way he can manipulate paint, it's in his hand. It's the way that actually he can create form. I find Manet's etchings really rather insignificant often. Some people like them, and his drawings are really nothing, but you give him a paintbrush, and there is nobody who can compete with him, it seems. Now, he loved this painting. This was the favorite painting that by Velasquez that Manet liked. And the thing that he liked about this painting was this background. By the way, notice that the black on this figure over here has hardly any shading on it because black absorbs like that. And this is very strong traditional shading using browns on the face and a very strong cast shadow. But all this brown looks like atmosphere. And there is no differentiation between the floor and the wall. The only way you know it's a ground is this. So this would influence Manet. And then there would be this. Now, Europeans got sick of actually the Renaissance tradition. It's not that they hated it, the avant-garde in Europe, but they wanted to find something new. So what ended up happening would be this. They started looking for outside sources. The first outside source that will help revolutionize Western painting will be Japanese prints. Later on, you'll see with Matisse that Matisse was very influenced by Persian miniatures from the 15th century. And then Cubism. Cubism and almost all of modern sculpture would be unthinkable without African sculpture, so-called primitive African sculpture. But this is by Utamaro. These are prints from the ukiyo-e, which means scenes of the floating world of everyday life. And you can see over here that it's very flat, no shading, beautiful use of tones over there. Manet was overwhelmed by that. This is a print by Characu. This is one of the, actually this is a male actor dressed up as a woman in one of the, I guess the kabuki drama. That's, again, no shading, delicate line. Van Gogh made this statement. Van Gogh, who everybody thinks is this nutcase almost, you know, who paints really greatly. Van Gogh is an extremely intellectual painter. Van Gogh said, I'm going to take the color of the Impressionists with the forms and the ideas of the Japanese, and I'm going to make great painting. And that's exactly what he did. And those of you who went on the trip, you couldn't even get into the show, really, because everybody and their uncle now wants to go see Van Gogh's paintings. And from those two influences, Manet does this, which is an extraordinary painting, really. First of all, one of the things I find extraordinary is the fact that these red pans look solid, that it doesn't look flat. It looks actually extremely solid, with the black over here going up through here into this thing over here. And by the way, the garment is as important, actually, as the garment is as important, in fact, as the whole image of the form is. Now, all he's done, one of the beauties of this painting is the fact that this background is basically just one color. There's a little diagonal over here to give you space, and this painting looks forward to basically hard-edge painting in the 1970s and 80s in the United States, in which people simply lay down actually large flat areas of color and put them next to one another. That's what this painting is about. Just like the paintings that he does like that, looks forward, in fact, to abstract expressionism. Manet has been reinvented, even in postmodernism, when Cézanne is not considered so highly anymore. Actually, I don't notice any of the young painters. Manet is still actually a force, in fact, with his taking of images from other painters, is still a force, actually, in the postmodernist movement. And then, of course, what does he do? Then if you're standing up, so you're lying down here. So the guy's dead, okay? He's dead. What is the red for? This is not a painting about death. He couldn't care less about it. This is red. This is for a touch of color. This has nothing to do like with the lamentation of, and the pink offsets the rest. And this figure is basically black and white. There's just the floor. There's no seal. There's no wall. Now, he was one painting that he did do, actually, that does have really a narrative in it. This is Goya's greatest painting, I think. This is the 3rd of May, dealing with atrocities that Napoleon committed against the Spaniards when he conquered Spain, in which these are French troops over here killing just 5,000 innocent Spanish men just to show them who's boss, like the Nazis. Now, what happened was this painting, this slide does not do this painting justice. This painting was shown, just this painting and other paintings dealing with it at the Museum of Modern Art a couple of years ago. It is unbelievable. It is a masterpiece of broad painting. These figures are made with just one large brush making up these dark figures. But this painting deals actually with the execution of Maximilian, who was the Austrian prince who Napoleon III used as a gimmick to gain French control of Mexico, and then during the American Civil War. And then after the Civil War, when Abraham Lincoln then invoked the Monroe Doctrine and French troops left, and poor Maximilian was under the impression that the Mexicans really wanted him, but they didn't. And so he was executed. But notice this, that what Manet has done purposely, this was not able to show this in his lifetime even, is that the troops who are killing them are French troops, not Mexican troops. And he's wearing a Mexican sombrero, Maximilian, and then these are the two Mexican generals who remained loyal to him. But this painting is still his old tricks. White moving into white over here, the touch of red. He doesn't want to go back too far in space, so he sets up this wall. And these figures look cut out. And it's gorgeous that they look cut out. You're very aware when you look at a Manet that you are not seeing a three-dimensional painting. It looks three-dimensional after all, but you're very aware of the flatness of the picture plane. He destroys the idea that painting has to be an illusion of real space that you can walk into, which was, of course, the thing that they did, you know, in the Renaissance, starting with, you know, with Giotto and then Masaccio. He sees this painting, also by Goya. I think they think this might not anymore, and he thinks, oh, this would be a neat idea for a painting. And he does this one, which is unbelievably gorgeous. This is one of the most beautiful paintings ever, I think. This is the painter Bertramariso. This is a paint. Why are these people together on the balcony? Sister, what's her name? Wendy. And some people might remember. I mean, she was cute. But let me tell you, most of the stuff was really nonsense. But she wrote something so foolish. I thought about it. I tried to analyze this painting psychologically. These people have simply come onto the balcony to make a painting. That's it. It has nothing to do with anything else but the painting. This is a painting about basically 3 tones. This is white moving into white. This is a white spot over here. This is a white spot. This is black. You can see there is Manet's sort of sun over there, Leoncuella over there in the background. Black moving into black. That must be black. This, whatever this is, that doily on her head over there, has to be surrounded actually by, in a sense, black shapes. And then the third tone then becomes the green of the screen over here, which moves now into the green of the balcony. And the blue, that's a pure blue, actually. That's a cobalt blue over probably an ultramarine blue. That is the touch of color in order to make all the colors come alive.
Magritte will recreate it.
And this is the same thing. This is in the Metropolitan Museum. This is a painting basically about 3 tones. The white moving into the white. This is black. This is a white shot. Black. The black coming into here. Black and white up here. The mid-tone color then becomes the blue, which is just a flat blue, and then he brings it into here. This is also about warm and cool colors. That must be warm, and because we're held on this guy with this here. This is brilliant. This is just brilliant that he puts the, I don't know how he ever figured this thing out. These are unbelievably brilliant in terms of the way his mind actually worked. Picasso loved Manet, and he said the thing about Manet was this, is that you always saw, you knew exactly how his mind was working when he was creating these paintings. I love this. I love this painting. God, this is, I've never seen this painting. It's called Argenteuil. Manet later on in his life, through Berta Morisot, who was associated with the Impressionists, became influenced actually by the bright colors that would be used, which is the thing of Impressionism. Impressionism introduces luminous color into painting. But he's still doing basically, this is basically flat painting with a flat blue, with the white from the background moving into the white of this. This is basically black, white, black, white, black, white, and then dark, and then light here, and that light must connect to that thing here. And this is an old trick to hold the figure, and you put a black and a white behind a figure, and it'll hold the whole thing in. This is the painter, by the way, Alfred Sisley, who was a great Impressionist painter. Now, Manet was very influenced, also, he and probably Cézanne are the 2 greatest still life painters of the 19th century, and both of them, like people who saw the Morandi show, who was probably, I would say that Morandi I'd have to put Picasso in. Morandi and Picasso are probably the 2 greatest still life painters of modern times, but not Picasso so much, but Morandi also goes back to Chardin, this great 18th century painter. This is the foreground, middle ground over here, background, the diagonal entrance, all that is basically, you know, a trick, almost in a way, formulas that are used to create space and get you into it. Manet's painting over here, how much Manet actually owes to Chardin, except that this is extremely loosely painted, and he doesn't soften the background. He doesn't soften. He brings it actually back up. I think this is the most beautifully painted lemon in the history of art. I mean, nowhere have I seen one that looks so luscious. And then here's another one. Olympia has become a dead fish, you can see over here. The white, the touch of color in that. The background, instead of fading like it does, comes right up. It's important that the white of this goes now into the white of that. This is black moving into black, and then this must be black. These eels and stuff, loving. This, of course, is France, where they love cooking. And I'm just showing you a detail. This is all painterly painting. You can't draw this sort of thing. It's going like this, and it's incredible. Oh, look at this. I love this painting. I don't want this. It's some sort of bell, I don't know why. But it's terrifically painted. But you are so aware that this is flat. You are so aware that this is flat. And that's the excitement of it. It just grips you with it. Now, he paints flowers beautifully. Towards the end of his life, actually, he didn't live long. He died in his 50s, horribly, horribly. And his leg had to be amputated without anesthesia. Unbelievable. And now this is, so he did paintings like this of flowers, beautifully done. Look at this, this is abstract painting. This is basically abstract painting. This is two large shapes. If this was a big painting, it would be an abstraction. Now, this was one of his defenders. This is the writer Émile Zola over here, and Zola wrote articles defending him. That's Olympia, you can see. That's Japanese prints, that's by Sharaku, and there is the Topas, the painting by Velázquez that I showed you. But this is not a portrait. This is probably the most, I think it's one of the most beautiful portraits ever painted, but it tells you nothing psychological about Zola. He was just sitting there, and he said he was sitting for 3 hours. When he turned around, Manet had completely forgotten he was there, was going bananas, trying to paint all this stuff. But look at this. This is white here. Why is that a yellow over here? Because this would not be integrated with this type of painting into the space if white did not move into white, and this needs to be black. But look at this. This is a very small thing in the painting. If this off-white were not over here between the chair and I don't know what that is back there in his back, you would completely lose the black, and then this would end up popping forward. And now this over here is, again, he did a lot of paintings dealing with, the one thing about Manet is this, when he does the figures with the still life, the figure is maybe the focal point of the painting, but the still life is equally important. Everything is equally important. When this painting was originally shown, critics couldn't understand it because they were so used to painting being stories. Even now they are. They couldn't see it really as just shape and color the way and they were wondering, is this supposed to be a luncheon before or after a duel? Why is the black head over there? He needs a black spot. Why is this over here, this sharp white? Because he needs a white spot over here. This is white moving into white. This is black moving into black. And then where does he get you the color? When you go back all the way over here in the back, he picks out a sharp white, and there is where you get the touch of bright color that offsets all the painting. And look at these V shapes, V here, and in the flowers over there. And he doesn't care often about scale, because the man is actually much too big often in comparison to the boy over there. That's his Leon Coelho. And look at this, is so beautiful. It's a small painting. Towards the very end of his life, he was anxious actually to do a painting dealing in a sense with these cafes and stuff. Everybody else was doing them. And this, of course, is not good for you, but it's a cigarette. It's fine. And she looks out of it. There is something, he discovers the fact that we are often living in a crowd, you know, and we're just out of the whole scene over there. This is basically white moving into white. And the white then is this too. This is a very bright sort of ochre that moves into this. This holds your attention, and this is a dark, this is the touch of color, and this black is needed in the area of white to make this work, and her hat must be black and white. And look at how he reduces the shading. You can see there on the face. This painting is in the Walters Art Gallery. And by the way, the one thing I want to bring about this painting is what's going on over here. If you put your hand over this section over here, this black will pop out of the painting. It will simply pop, become too flat. The way it's held in is that when he does this woman, he puts this black here, he gives a black eyebrows, and let me tell you, he's thinking about that thing. He knows it now. He knows so wonderfully how to use black. The painter Renoir said black is the queen of colors. Matisse said if you don't know what to do in a painting, put in black, you know, and then just put this in. This is mid-tone grays. This is a warm gray, this is a cool gray, and these are the touches going all the way back there of bright color. And this is his last great masterpiece, which is in the Courtauld Museum in London. Again, you see this coming through over here. And now what he does is that he does all these different things with backgrounds. He takes the idea from Velázquez. Instead of having the mirror in front of you, you have the mirror behind the woman. You don't know how this mirror works. He needs the dog to work over here, to move into that thing over here. This is a vertical thrust. And look at these two white bulbs. That's where all these people got the idea. If you're doing flat painting, the top of the painting will tend often to try to fall away. And this will become too strong, so he puts these two whites over here, and all this is extremely painful. You see there's a woman over here in the bar as opposed to who's like she's doing a trapeze thing. I really want to get this in because this is the meaning of this lecture. This is actually a painting by Rembrandt, actually this is a painting done in the 17th century using extremely strong shading. You can see Dr. Culp, I forget his name. Yes. And this is the greatest American painting. And let me tell you, this slide does this no justice. This painting knocks your eyes out. This is the Gross Clinic. This is the painting that they raised 68, I gave $100. They gave $68 million in order to really save this painting. And this is done actually around the same time that Manet is painting. This is done with every traditional gimmick that you have actually that you could learn in a school. But what the thing that Akins does, and this is one of the aspects of realism, realism can be the deadest art form in the world. It can be as boring as sin, so you can make something look like something whoopee. After a while, it won't hold. It must be intense. It must be intense. This has extraordinary intensity to it. It's an extraordinary, powerful painting. And what he's trying to show over here, this is done from a whole series of drawings, actually in small painting studies of Dr. Gross. He's doing a demonstration of an operation on somebody's leg over there. The boy has been brought into the operating room. The students are up over here. Actually, the people who were here before were the nursing students, should have stayed here. This thing over here, the students are all taking notes on it. And the thing now we're now in an entirely different world than Manet's world. We're now in a world actually where the subject really is important. What is Akins trying to say with this painting? He's trying to say that this man's mind is at work. If you're a doctor, you can't be emotional like the mother. I couldn't believe it, that there are some people who can't understand, why is this woman doing this? She's the mother. Her child is being cut open. Of course she would shriek in horror. He can't do that. How can he carry on an operation? Phenomenal paint, and these figures have such veracity to them. One of the things that Akins does that's unbelievably beautiful, the painter Wayne Theobald is a big Akins fan, the painter from out of the West Coast, is what he does in the darkness of the painting. Even Rembrandt does not do this as good, I think. The way he gets all these figures coming to life in that painting. And this painting is equally as good, I think. This is the Agnew Clinic, which he did much. He was paid like $300 for this painting. This painting, here's Dr. Agnew, and he's balanced over here by this. Look at the students over there. Look at that in the darkness. Nobody has ever done that. Akins showed that traditional approach to painting. He's much better than his teacher, Léon Gérôme, whose paintings, I think, are basically only interested from a historical point of view. A painting like this, anything next to it is simply wiped out. And by the way, he didn't complete this entire painting himself. This is him coming into the room. You can see over here, and that was painted by his wife, Susan MacDonald Akins. This is basically also, these are plays on whites that you have over here, but this is all using the effects of shading. The effects of shading make this whole thing. Beautiful, beautiful painting. Now, just to show you, while he's alive, this painting is done. This is a painting done by Seurat. This is one of Seurat's great paintings of three nudes. This is done with pointillism, with very bright color, under the influences of post-impressionist painting. And Akins does this, which I think is the greatest American painting of a nude. America has a hard time with nudes. I know this. Museums often, museums in New Jersey will have a hard time. They can show a lot of things, but they'll hide the nudes often in the background, actually, of the museum. This is Russia. This guy over here was a sculptor, and he's doing this monument over here. And this is the model, actually, for the monument. This is the chaperone who comes in, actually, to make sure that, nothing goes on while, actually, this is going over. And then the clothes become so important in this painting. The clothes in the foreground. There are clothes in the foreground also of the painting by Seurat. And then the blue, his color is quite beautiful. And he makes brown wonderful. But I think that part of the great beauty of this painting, besides the sort of tilt of the model's body, is the relationship of the stuff in the light area with the stuff over here in the darkness